Welcome to Techlearners. In today's lecture, we will talk about types of methods in Java. These types are based on signature. In the previous lecture, we had talked about Java methods. So let's talk about types of methods. As we had discussed that the signature of the method includes a few things like access specifier, modifier, return type, function name, and then we have the parameter list. So based on these things, the function can be divided into 4 categories. So we will discuss all 4 categories and we will use all types of methods into a program. So let's talk about the first category, which has no return value and no parameter list. That means the function, we do not pass anything to the function, and even the function do not return anything to us. In this case, whenever we do not have any return type, then this return type will always be mentioned as void and the parameter list is empty. So this is a simple example of the function where the function is not returning anything and even there is no parameter list. So this is a simple function to sum two numbers. Whenever we are not passing anything into the function, we need to have those variables and values inside the functions, and we need to print, let's say, sum of a and b inside the function, and we do not write to any return statement here. So this is the first type of method which has no return value and no parameter. Let's talk about the second type, which is having a return value but no parameter list. That means we are not passing anything in the function, but the function will return us something. So we need to mention that return type depending upon what value the function is returning. If the function is returning an integer value, then we will mention here int data type. If the function is returning a float value, then we'll mention here float data type. So let's talk about the function, and the parameter list is empty in this case. So we'll have two variables a and b, then we'll sum these values, and then we need to mention the return statement. So this return statement is important whenever the function returns a value. So we'll write a return statement and then the value we are returning from the function. The important thing is the type of the value we are returning and this return data type must match. As we are returning an integer value from here, the return data type must also be an int. If we return a float value, then the return type must also be a float. So this is the compatibility. The third type, where we do not return anything from the function but we pass something to the function. That means we have a parameter list but we do not return anything from the function. That means function is not returning anything. So whenever function is not returning anything, the return type will always be a void. And this is the parameter list. Here we are passing two variables to the function. Both are int type. We can pass more than two. We can have different data types. So this is the way how we can pass the parameter int data type, then the variable, then again the second data type variable, and these are separated by a comma. So we need to have the executable statements, and remember, as we are not passing anything, so as we are not returning anything from the function, return statement is not required. And the fourth type, where we have both the things, the function will return something and we will pass some parameters to the function. So in this case, just see the signature here. As the function is returning an integer value, so return type is int, and we are passing two integer variables to the function, so the parameter list will contain int a comma int b. And now as the function returns something, return statement is necessary. So at the end of the function we will write a return statement which will return an integer value. So this is how all the 4 types of methods can be defined. Now let's see all 4 types of functions one by one into the program, considering all the 3 things: the signature, the definition, and calling also. So let's write a program. So this is the first type of method, which is not returning anything, as does not have any parameter list. So this is the definition of the function. So you can see this is the signature, which is having a void data type and empty parameter list with the function name. We can also add access specifier and modifier if needed. So and now this is the definition of the function. So we need to have some processing and we need to display what we have done into the function if needed. Now how we can call this function? As we have seen the object orientation concept, just to call or execute the class, we need to have the object of the function, and we need to create the object. Normally we create this into the main method, which is have a modifier static. So this is static modifier will attach this main method to the class, and this is a class method. This is an instance method. So just remember the difference between a class method and an instance method. The class method, with the help of a static, is associated with the class and can directly be executed, and the instance method, which does not have a static modifier, is the method that has to be accessed or executed with the help of the object. So if we want to call this, we need to create the object of the class. So let me create the object of the class inside the main method. So let me create the object first. So it's, let's say I have created with the help of the class name method types. We'll be using constructor. We'll study the constructors into a separate video. So with the help of this object and with the dot operator, this is the access object and this is the dot operator, which is used to access the members of the class. So we'll access this sum function. So let me call this sum function. So the calling, let's talk about the calling. As the function do not have any parameter list, at the time of calling we do not need to pass anything into the function. Similarly, as the function is not having any return type, we do not need to have any variable and store any value into the variable. We'll see this later when we'll see a function with some return type. We'll clear it more. So this is how we can call the function. Let me compile this and show you the output. So let's see the output of the method, first type of the method, which is without any parameter. So this is the sum 11. So it's not actually returning, as we have used the printing method inside the function. So this is sum is 11. So this is the first type of method with no return type, no parameter. So this is the signature, this is the definition, and this is the calling of the function. Now let's talk about the second type of function, which is having with the return value but no parameter. So let me use this function. So return type, we need to make a few changes into this. We need to change this void. From void we will be converting, let's say, int, as we will return some integer value. Then we'll perform all the operations, and finally we need to add the return statement. So what we want to return, let's see, we want to return the sum a plus b. So this is how the signature changes. We have used int instead of void now because the function is returning integer value. This is the definition, can be similar, and we have added return statement. So this is important, and we are returning integer value. So this is how things changed. And now let's talk about the calling of the function. If we'll see, now this is calling, we are calling a function. Obviously we are not passing anything, but the function is returning something. So the function is returning something and will return to the calling function. So main is the calling function, so it will return some value to the main. So the main function must catch that value. It is returning an integer value, so we must have an integer variable, let's say int sum. So it will sorry, let's say s. It should not be similar to the name of the function. So int s m dot sum. So now the returned value will be stored into this s, and here we can use any statement to print the value of this s. So let's say print sum inside main, and let me print the value of this variable s. So it has whenever function returns something, we must have a variable that will hold that returning value, and it should be compatible. So this is s, it is integer, so we must see that the function was returning an int value, so we must have an integer value. So this is a good practice, although we can use the typecasting also, but we'll discuss that into some later videos. So this is the return type. So this is how we can use the second type of function. Now let me execute this program and see how the output will be. So this is the output, sum is 11. This is the printing method inside the function, and this is where we have caught the returned value inside the main, and then we have printed that value. So this is how we can use the second type of methods which return some value. Now let's talk about the third type of method which is not returning any value but have some parameter list. So let me copy this function. This is okay. So we have a different function now. We have a void and we have, okay, let me redo this. Let me make changes into this only. Okay, I'll make this void, as the function will not return anything. I'll be passing two parameters, int a and b. Now as we have already passed, we do not need these two values, right? And the function does not return anything, so we need to eliminate this return function from here. So this is how signature changes. No return type but some parameters. We can perform the execution inside the function. Now let's talk about calling. As the function is not returning anything, we do not need to have any variable and store into, but yes, we need to pass some values into this function. So now this, at the time of calling, the parameters must be there and both should be integer type. So we have to pass two integer values here. So let me pass 4, 6. So this is how we call the function. We do not have to use any return variable. We just have to pass these two values. So this is how we can pass these two values, and now we need to eliminate this statement. Let me execute this, close this and execute this for you. So let me execute. So you can see that the sum, this is the sum is 10. So we have passed two values, 4 and 6, so the sum is 10. So this is how the third type of method, the signature, the definition, and this is how we used to call it. Now let's talk about the last method type, the fourth method type, which has the return value as well as the parameter list. So let me go back and make some changes into this. So now as this is returning, so we need to write the return type int. We are passing the parameters, and then we must add the return statement, so that will return the value. So this is how the signature changes, the statements, and now we need to add the return statement as the function is returning something. Let's talk about the calling. So as the function is returning, then we have to have a variable inside our main function that will hold the returned value. So we have made the variable return value, and then as we need to pass the values, so we'll pass two values, both of the same data type, and then we can again in the same manner we can print the value inside the main function. So sum is inside, let's say, main, then we can print the variable s. So this is how we call the fourth type of function. We need to pass both the values, and then we need to have a return variable also that will store the returned value from the function. So let me compile, close, and execute the program for you, and we'll show you. Right, so this is sum is 10, which was inside the function, and this is from the main function. So this is how we can create different type of functions depending upon our requirement. This is how we can create a signature of different types. We can define, and then the important thing, how we will be calling different types of methods. So I hope you have understood the types of the methods. We will be dealing with these methods in more detail in upcoming videos, and we will be talking about more concepts like constructors and destructors into the upcoming videos. So subscribe the channel, like the video, and hit that bell icon so that you can get the notifications. Thank you.